Okay, guys, as it is exactly 3 p.m., I think it is time to start. So I will just use the first a minute and a half while the other people are keep joining to this webinar. Just to say hello again. My name is Polina from the Bulgarian Association for People Management, and I really want to thank you that you all decided to spend this afternoon here with us talking about gamification. On behalf of Bulgarian Association of People Management and on behalf of our partners from Idein and IJsfontein, Bart will correct me if I pronounce the name of the company in a wrong way. But yeah, thank you very much, guys, really for spending these times with us, and thank you for joining. Today we are going to talk about gamification, and especially gamification in the onboarding process. Why? Because we believe that this is important, this is interesting, this is fun, and most of all, our three organizations, the Idein, IJsfontein, and the Bulgarian Association for People Management, were involved in the development and the implementation of a project under the Erasmus Plus program. Very sorry for my voice, but yeah, this is the flu season. Today we have a really very interesting agenda with very interesting speakers here about the project itself. We are going to tell you some more words a little bit later during our time together today. Before I give the floor to Bart and present him to you, I will use just few more seconds to give you some just technical and organizational information. Whenever you have a question, guys, please feel free to put it in the chat, send it directly to me or directly to the whole group as you prefer, or also you can always use the raise your hand button, which you will see in the toolbar, and we will give you the floor to ask your questions. We are not going to wait the presentation of Bart to end and then open Q&A session. Feel free to ask your questions whenever they arise to you in your head. So without losing any more time, I would like to present you our first guest speakers today. This is Bart Hilfen. Bart is very nice and very sweet, but most of all, Bart is the author of two very interesting books that are dedicated to gamification and how we use the game mechanics to make different processes in our organization more effective and more efficient. He's going to tell us more about it any minute now. Bart is also one of the, let's say, founding fathers of gamification here in Europe, and he's part of the global top speakers and gurus on the topic of gamification. So use your time with him today, ask any questions that you have in mind, because he is going to answer them. Of course, the focus today is especially on the HR processes and how we can use gamification there. Bart has prepared a lot of interesting cases that he is going to share. So Bart, please, the floor is all yours. Welcome.
Thank you, Polly. I hope everyone can hear me good. And I'll just kick off with the slides. Quickly, there we go. So basically we'll go to these topics, but like Polly said, if you have any questions, let me know. I can't see you. There's 50 people right now, but there were 120 people that subscribed. So let's see who drops in along the way. But Polly will interrupt me as soon as that's necessary. So I'll just proceed. So who am I? Well, this is a picture of me. No, I'm kidding. You probably recognize this. I had no idea what it was until it was on our news last week. No, so I graduated in 1999 with a paper about the strategic positioning of a game company in Amsterdam, which is called IJsfontein. So I've known them for a long time. And I spent my time in the past working for Atari, for Diesel Benelux, 2 years in advertisement, and founded my own company in 2010. And last year I joined IJsfontein to upscale Uptrack, which is a platform with gamification elements that I'm really keen on showing you some more about at the end of the presentation. But I'll start with a more generic approach about gamification. What is it? How can you use it? Why is it so effective to use game mechanics to change people's behavior, etc. So we'll start really generic and strategic, and then we'll go more into detail with some practical cases that we executed in the past 13 years. So I wrote 2 books in Dutch, but they're also available in English. And if you wish to receive them, let Polly or the organization know, or send me an email if you want. Send me the book at brandnewgame.com would work as well. Some clients I've worked for in the past, and yeah, that's basically the most important part, I guess, about me. I have a background in industrial communication and also in brand management, but I was basically always focused and intrigued by influencing people's behavior. So that's what I've been investigating, I guess, the last 10, 15 years, and especially how you can use game mechanics, of course, to influence people. So if we talk about gamification, there's a lot of different definitions out there, and I'm not necessarily keen on, you know, the exact one definition that will rule them all, because there just isn't. I think gamification is applying game mechanics that you know from games like Fortnite or Farmville or even Candy Crush, and that you use some of these mechanics within a context that's not a game, and you use it for a serious purpose, often to influence people's behavior. And maybe the most recognizable example for all the professionals present right now is LinkedIn. You might not have noticed in the past, but they have evolved more and more and more and more. And it started, I guess, with the progress bar in the past. When you would create your own account, it will say you are 10% complete, finishing your profile. And then the bar would be raised if you upload your picture, if you add some work experience, maybe if you get a few endorsements, etc., etc. And this is basically a progress bar, is basically one of the game mechanics that are recognizable in computer games. And I don't know if a lot of people out there blog or write articles on LinkedIn, but as soon as you publish something, you get a congratulations, and you get a reward and a bit of feedback and a bit of stimulants to write more and to share it with other people. And obviously also the thumbs up and thumbs down and all kinds of subliminal feedback that's present. You could consider that to be all gamification. So why does it work so well? Basically, there are so many psychological layers in our mind and in our head and in our personality. And games really tap into those intrinsic motivations that we have. So it could be, to name one, our ego is a very valuable asset that we use for players or for people in general. By creating an avatar, for instance. If you create your own virtual persona, that's something that really works well. And why does it work well? Because it always has worked well. In the old days, when we didn't have computers, but like 500 years ago, we would have our portrait painted by a painter. And then you could show people how important you were because you had this painting. If you look at the selfie culture right now, I mean, when I grew up, we had I was going to say a telephone, but I mean a photograph machine, right, to take photos. And I always took photos that way. I never imagined putting the camera the other way around and making a picture of myself. It doesn't make sense. But if you look at the generation, of course, at this moment, everyone takes selfies. Everyone wants to show, I'm here, I'm right now, I matter. And that's basically our ego saying, like, look at me, how successful I am, or how many friends I have, or what a great time I'm having, or a great dinner, or whatever. So there's a lot of psychological drives and motivations or needs that we have that can be satisfied by game mechanics. And also maybe they're in a virtual world, but they still have real life meaning to us. And in that sense, you could say that nothing motivates us more than mechanics. But I have to say up front, and I will show you later, it's very it's a very delicate process to choose the right mechanics that motivate your target audience, because if you choose the wrong mechanics, it could actually backfire. So it's not a game of just applying some mechanics, some badges, points, and leaderboards, or BPL, as we call them in our world, because that might just not work. And often it just doesn't. It all starts with a relevant purpose, for instance. So I thought it would be nice maybe to first take you into the process of how we develop serious games and gamification systems. Because it's we have a methodology, and it's just an approach that we use, that we have built in the past, in my case 12 years, and in IJsfontein's case the past 27 years. This is a canvas, you could say, that we use to develop those serious games. And I'm going to make some jokes in between, if you don't mind, so don't feel appalled, but it always starts with the angry client. In this case, the red face on one side of the screen. He wants something to be done because he's not happy, or she is not happy with the current situation. It might be lack in revenue. It might be that you can't find the right talent. It might mean that you want to upsell and cross-sell better because your colleagues are not able to ask the right questions. Anyhow, there's some urgency, you could say, on that end. On the other hand, you have the target audience, and in our case, we have focused in the past 13 years always on employees. That's our main focus. So it's always about employees, because also I feel it's always about people that can make the change. It's not about the system, it's not about the software, it's not about other contextual environmental stuff. It's always about people that need to stop doing this and start doing that. That's the change. So, but there's a big gap between those two often, because maybe the employees are just there to make the money to go on a holiday, or to be able to support their children or send them to college. So there's often a big gap, and we can bridge the gap with a concept. So I'm going to go into more detail after this slide, but this is basically the constructs. And you can receive the slides if you want later, so you don't need to take notes or screenshots. I think it also will be video recorded, so you can watch it back later. But it always starts with the objective. And the client objective is something we want to define as smart as possible. So specific, measurable, actionable, realistic, and time-bound. So we at least know what we can achieve within a certain set of months or years. So that's one end. On the other hand, we have the player that has certain drives and motivations or ambitions or other stuff that we need to take into account. And they might not align. They might be worlds apart. So that's where obviously gamification comes in, because if people don't want to change, we can make them want to change, or we can alter their desires or tap into their drives and motivations with specific content or within the specific context. And content I divide in three variables, you could say. There's always the visual shape, the way it looks. I always say, give the example that if we design something for truck drivers, we will probably not make it pink and with a lot of happy ponies in it, because we have to make sure the shape fits the target audience. And also what really helps well is to make sure that the shape matches the visual style or the visual identity of the brand or the company that we develop it for. Right? So this is an important first step. It's the first barrier if people will or will not start playing the game. Second, you could say, is the structure. And by structure, I mean most of the time the back end of the application. It sounds strange maybe, but we always start with the back end, because in the back end, that's where the users end up. That's where we put the game mechanics. That's where we put the content, etc. So it's important to think about the structure, the shape, and of course also the game mechanics. And those mechanics should match with the motivations of the players. For instance, if people, and you could say women in general, but let's say people don't like competition, you shouldn't put any competitive elements in the game. That's just common sense, but it's sometimes hard to find out what the drivers and player motivations are. And the context basically is determined by where and when will they play, because if they play in the morning or in the evening, they could be in a different location. If they play in the train, there might be people around them, or they might be standing in the tube or whatever. And if they play on a mobile phone, it's a different device than if it's on a laptop. So they have different mechanics or different tools in their hands, literally. So you could say writing a lot of stuff is not really convenient on a telephone, or reading a lot of stuff as well. But if people sit in a chair and are more in a laid-back mode, then there's more opportunity to do that. So it has also a lot of influence for the user experience and the user interface. Then finally, like I said earlier on, in the end, it's all about behavior, right? We want to influence behavior, whether it's to make them more effective in asking questions, or teach them how to scale up or upsell and cross-sell, for instance. So we need to identify the key behavior that we want to influence, and there's a method we have for it, and I'm going to show you in a minute. And in the game, or in the gamification context, we will use feedback to say, okay, this is not helping you, this is not productive, so this is a negative consequence of your behavior, this is positive, so this is what you should do. And this way we can cultivate a culture of collaboration and contribution. Now, I don't hear any questions yet, but should you have them, let me know. Let me start with player behavior, and basically how we are influenced according to my research. Because I was frustrated with the models that were present about behavioral change, because I couldn't find something that I thought was really true. So I did 2 years of research for my last book, and I found out that whether we do something or don't do something is influenced by 4 elements. And I made them 4 verbs, because I think if you want people to do something else, it needs to be a verb. So in this case, we have 4 elements. It's something I want to do. If I want to change, then at least that's the first step in my change. I need to know what to change or how to change. I need to be aware of the impediment that I have. I need to be able to change, like physically. I could say, okay, I want to jump to the moon, but if I can't physically, maybe I need to build a rocket first that enables me, right? And the 4th thing is I need to dare to do it. And every project I've worked on, I think that's an issue as well. So I think it's how do you say, they're all communicating with each other. They also all have influence on each other. And maybe it's nice if I ask the people now, if you can use the chat to let me know what you think is the most dominant factor in whether people do something or don't do something. I would love it if you would put it in the chat right now, whether you think it's that people want to change. Is that the biggest dominant factor? Is it about knowledge always? Is it about the ability, like the competences and skills they have? Or is it the lack of guts, the self-confidence? Is that the most influential one? Please throw them in, and I'll review it later. I'm not going to do it now, but I'm just curious what you think is the most important one and the most dominant one. Let's stick to that. Like, what's the most dominant that influences our behavior? And then I'll slightly go through them. So if you look at I want to do something, it requires a lot of purpose, right? So there's a lot of people that say, yeah, I want to write a book, or I want to be an influencer, or I want to be a millionaire. But if I learned one thing from the book, oh no, I forgot the title. Oh yeah, The Subtle Art of Not Giving a Fuck. Sorry, excuse me for the language. But it's a very, very funny book. But if I learned one thing from it, that the conclusion of that book is basically that everybody wants something, but the question is more, how much are they willing to suffer for it? So how much investment do you want to, how much hours do you dare to invest to achieve what you want? So one thing is one thing. Knowledge is a second. And it's funny that most of our projects that we've done, the client starts briefing us that the knowledge needs to be leveled up. So they need to know more or know it better or whatever. And it's, well, you could say at least 25% of the whole change. But you could argue, if knowledge is so important in this period of time where artificial intelligence basically is out there, where the web has been filled with 25 years of content, where there's loads of TED Talks, loads of videos that people share knowledge. So you could argue, is knowledge the most important? Then ability, people need to be able to do stuff. So that needs to be that they need to be enabled as well. So are you enabled by your management, for instance? Because if you really want to frustrate people, you should make sure that they get more responsibility, but they're not enabled to act on those responsibilities. I experienced that myself in the past. And you could also argue, like, does everyone need to be able to do everything, or is it about creating the optimal teams that work together? So you have one person that's really a go-getter with a good purpose, the one knows everything, the other is very able, and the fourth is very secure about himself or the team effort, and they dare to do stuff. Well, according to my research, now let me give you the answer. Daring or not daring to do what you want to do is actually 70% of our decision making. So in 70% of the cases, eventually, how bad we want it, how well we know what to do, and how well we're able to do it, we just don't dare to do it. So 70%, it's also about letting go. We are so afraid to let go of what we already know that also 70% of all change management projects, they fail because people just don't dare to let go. And this is something I think everyone should really take into account, which also means for us, if we develop games or systems, that we hold into account that basically we could enable people with knowledge that make them maybe less scared of doing it. So knowledge could actually interact with daring, or we will fuel their desire to achieve something, because if you really want it really, really bad, you might be willing to take the risk, right? So they all interact with each other and they all influence each other. And I think the impact you have could be 1 times 2 times 3 times 4 in total, and that your impact is like 24. But if they're all 1, then it's 1 times 1 times 1 times 1, and you don't have any impact at all. So it's good to fuel them with the system that you develop.
Bart, before you continue with the next slide, one question here from the chat. Bart, you mentioned that the want part requires a lot of purpose in it. Must the company give this purpose to its people, or is it up to the people themselves to find it in what the company does?
That's an excellent question, and it's actually in my book, of course, but it's almost like you feed me with it. Yes, I explained a game that I came up with. It's a really simple game, but I call it the purpose pyramid. Because, of course, hopefully every organization or big company has a purpose, like a vision and a mission and a purpose, like this is what we pursue to achieve, right? The way you get there might vary, but I think it's a very valuable thing to do this exercise with all of your staff bottom up. So build it like a pyramid, but really ask from the receptionist to the chief executive officer, like, okay, if this is the way we want to go, what will your contribution be towards that goal? Because if you build a purpose pyramid from all those people, and I strongly believe this is the only pyramid you should ever build in your organization, and I know a lot of organizations are built like pyramids and linking pins, but I would kill that. But let them write down on one post-it and put it in the hallway what their contribution will be to the purpose, because then you can see if they're all in line with each other. And if they're not, then you might say, hey, listen, Bart, what you wrote down will not add up to our purpose. So I don't think you will be happy staying with this company. So maybe let's look where you could work more efficiently and more within your own value and purpose direction. So the purpose pyramid is really a stupid, simple tool. Just let people write it in 100 characters on a post-it. What will your contribution be to our larger purpose? And let's see if we can align all those different cards into the same direction. And which, if they don't, then they probably don't fit in. So it's better to say goodbye. I hope it answers your question.
I think so, yes, because the colleague saying that, yeah, he thanks you for the answer.
And if not, send me a text or a LinkedIn invite and we can elaborately discuss it. But it's also, in my book. I think purpose is step one in your change. Also, because it's in every computer game. In every game, the first question a player has is, what do I need to do to win? Right? So it's so intrinsically in ourselves. The reason why you are here today is because you have a higher purpose. You want to learn something and apply that to your work. You're not here to see me. You're here to learn something that you can apply for your purpose, which is great. And I'm here to serve. So we define purpose or objective or a goal. And we plot it on the business playground as I described it in my book. Because my background is like an MBA I did here in Holland. And so I was a bit frustrated with all the models, and a lot of consultancy companies come up with all kind of complicated things, and the business, what is it, the scorecard, and there's so many things out there. But I think in the end, it only our playground, our business is only influenced by two axes. And basically one is the turnover and our costs, and the other is people in our organization or people outside of our organization. But it's always about people, and we want to influence them. So we developed a methodology which is called the GameStorm. Basically, it's a method of creating a business plan for your change. So this is about your objective as an organization and the behavior we want to influence. And the goal could be, it's about turnover, or it could be external, that we want to have franchisees sell more of our product or do a better customer service. Or it could be internally, like we need to lower our costs. What can we do together to get that done? And once we define that in the session, we will ask people to write down as many obstacles as they can to identify why it's so hard to achieve the goal. And we play this game with 6 people always. So we do it with clients. We ask 6 people. Often it's a crisscross from the organization. Or in the case for Foot Locker, for instance, we did it with all their store managers. So 680 store managers in Europe. We did it also with the 40 managing directors and the 5 regional vice presidents. So we did the whole pyramid in this method. And basically, after we identified, or they identified, the key 3 obstacles, we asked them to write down as many as behaviors that they want to stop, that are undesired. And that's one team. So instead of 6 people, we asked 3 in the killers and 3 in the creator mode. And the creators will think about future behavior that we want to see in the organization. So one is what we should stop. It's like the east position, you could say, and one is what we should start. It's like the Zoll position, like the future. So past versus future. And then in the final round, I won't explain in detail today how it works exactly, but in the final round, we calculate the impact if we stop with that behavior and we start with that behavior. And that will give us an estimate, like a potential progress that we will make if we get the behavioral change right. And of course, we plot it like, okay, can we influence this then with making them want to change? Do we need to work on the knowledge? Do we need to work on their abilities, on their skills or competences? Or do we need to work on their self-confidence to achieve what we have mapped out today in half a day? So I hope this video shows, because it's a time lapse, so it's really fast. But this is what a session looks like with 4 people in this case, with a playground. I always explain Donkey Kong first to get people in the gamification mode so they understand the different game mechanics. But we go basically through the mechanics that are in any game, because like in Donkey Kong, you have to save the princess. That's the goal. But there's obstacles in your way because there's a ladder and there's a lever and there's other stuff that prevent you from achieving the goal. There's behavior with negative consequences and behavior with positive consequences. And eventually you score points, you slay the monkey, and you get to the next level. And in the next level, of course, it becomes harder. And that's why it is so much fun for us, because it pushes us into a flow where we level up continuously. So this is what a game plan will look like after 1 day or half a day of playing with 6 people. This was one of the teams at Foot Locker. and it was in their case about to increase conversion. So they created their own plan. And if you talk about purpose and enabling people and making people enthusiastic for the desired change, this is already a very good tool that makes people feel like, yeah, this is our plan. We came up with the ideas. We came up with the obstacles. Let's kill those obstacles and achieve what we put down as a number below. So this is a physical game, of course, but this is always the first session we do before we create any digital tool. So if there's any questions, let me know. Otherwise, I'll proceed. Just to give you an idea, I won't be talking about this for a long time now because I'll move on to the cases, to the practical examples that we have. But we also do, if we start a project together, we do a gameplay session where we identify what the player profile might be, what do we want to achieve with the players. So we determine player goals, and then we choose together the best possible mechanics. We have a deck of playing cards that we use, and then we choose the cards, and then eventually we think we'll have the best constructs that will enable the change, and and as a guide for our development. So I'm gonna skip this, but this is just a more elaborate description of what things you can think if you talk about wanting, knowing, being able, and daring to do stuff. So if you would have something developed, it will go through different stages, of course. I don't know if you have practical experience with having software developed, but you will have a concept phase, a prototype phase, a beta phase, and finally a launch version. And often after launch, if you do really well and you see this as a strategic tool, you will not be finished, because there's always the opportunity to create new content that's maybe contextual relevant, like in the beginning of the year with Kirikuru, maybe during Christmas a different approach, maybe during the summertime a different content. So there's always an opportunity to keep updating the platform or the game that you release, and that always will draw people back to the game or to the platform. If you launch it once and then lay back and think this will go for the rest of their lives, that won't happen. Everything dies out, I'm afraid. So this is just an example of if we would design something, which types of phases we have. So we'll create a mood board, we'll create we'll do some sessions that we'll draw a scheme, we'll translate that into an Excel. The Excel is basically the blueprint for the backend. Then we'll have a visual design saying, okay, it's about superheroes, and people can create an avatar and they can buy stuff with their points that they earn in the game, etc. So it's all a loop. And this looks like waterfall. I don't know if waterfall that rings a bell for you, but it's a classic way of designing ICT systems, but it's really not. We don't do waterfall. We iterate continuously through phases. So this is the first half. This was my steamroll of information, but we're going to cut to a small break for a poll from Paulina, and then I'll show you some HR examples, how you can apply gamification.
Bart, maybe we can continue because I have a little problem with the poll. I will just give you
I'll do one case until you
post, okay.
Just shout it out when you think you have the time. So since 1997, in the case of IJsfontein, they've achieved or they've developed, I think, over 100 digital games, probably much more, on a variety of topics. So it could be about increasing customer service, increase conversion, cross-sell, upsell, uncover hidden talents of employees, select new staff based on attitudes or work ethics. That will be a nice case, I think, to show to you in a second. So there's a lot of possibilities, and there's physical games and digital games, of course. Just one example of a very stupid, simple concept, but really effective, is what we developed for the big sneaker retailer in Europe. They asked us to develop something to have their employees think more about what talents they have and how they use those talents in sales conversations with clients in the stores. So if you work a service-oriented organization or in a retail organization, this could be a very handy tool for you to apply as basically also as a conversation starter for the store manager with his employees, to say like, hey, we have 50 talents in this deck. Everyone gets 5 talent cards. We'll shuffle them. So the 5 talents you get are not your talents yet, but you have to lay back 1 talent and pick another talent every round until the stack is gone. So in the end, you will hopefully have 5 talents that you feel are your key talents. And then you discuss why you hold on to those talents. That's basically why it's called Talent Hold'em. Also, we developed this with the idea that it's not always about knowledge or about abilities. Sometimes it's also about your God-given talents. Like, what do you have as a person by birth that is really discriminating and really useful to inspire other people as well, like how they could use the talent that you have. For instance, when you're a very funny person, maybe you have this one joke that always works and that you can tell someone that is maybe less confident in telling jokes or making fun with people. Or if you look at the card tech savvy, some people are just very interested and naturally into tech, how you can apply tech to your workspace, for instance, artificial intelligence. And yeah, they can teach you or give you inspiration or insights in how you can apply that in your sales conversation. And we played this also again with all the 860 store managers, and we gave them a deck in their own language to their own stores. So in France and Spain, they had different versions of the game.
Bart, I'm ready with the poll, so whenever you think it's okay.
Yeah, let's do it then. Yeah, let's do that.
This is just a short poll, guys, and we'll tell you a little bit later during the webinar why we are asking you these questions. So, ready to start it.
Let's see, how do I, can I also, no, I'm not one.
No, you're not going to see it because you're the co-host of the video. Sorry.
I want to enter something too.
Maybe just a few more seconds because a lot of people are feeling it.
Yeah, no, don't worry. I think we're good in time. I have about 6 minutes per case, so I have 5 cases. Very honest people, I think.
Yeah, me too. Half of the people have finished the survey.
Let's take another minute.
I think just 5 more seconds and we can stop it. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Okay, stop it. Thank you.
Thanks, everyone. You want to go through them now, or is it maybe at the end? Or
no, later. Yeah.
Shall I see? You have to. No, can I click on data stopper? Right, I'll stop the sharing.
We're going to stop the poll. You can just continue.
Can I click it? Yeah, I have to click it away then here. Or so. Okay, cool. So another case for retail. I don't know if there's a lot of retail organizations present, but this is a game we developed a long time ago for a mobile phone company. Let me see if I can get rid of this taskbar and create account. So I'll have to go to the video in that pace that it comes with, but we developed it because the client said, okay, up to recently, we sold mobile phone and subscriptions to consumers, but we just sold them the best offer that we had at that time. So it might be the case that a client walks in and was actually looking for an iPhone with a Vodafone prescription, but because we had a very good deal, we could talk them into buying a Samsung with a KPN subscription, for instance. So, but they said this is going to change because we're going to be part of this big mobile phone company, and we now just want to serve them in the best possible offer. And we're actually going to resell this concept soon to a new client of ours. And the idea of the game is that if you greet a customer in the beginning as they enter the store, you will reveal one or two hints. So you saw maybe in the beginning the coffee mug and sneakers. So that would imply this is a technical shopper that knows what he wants, because we made a list of 3 types of customers: functional, technical, and emotional shoppers. And based on that, the tone of voice should match that type of person. So basically you ask questions in the game, and the consumer will answer with icons. This enabled us also to create a game that's infinitely fun. And we could randomize the customers just based on the variables in the backend. So again, that's the backend part. The visual style was in line with the company at the time. And here you see me asking questions to this person, like how often do you call, sir? Or how often do you call in general? Or whom do you call? It's the exact same question, but in a different sentence, depending on, might this be an emotional person, technical, or functional? Because if he's functional, he just wants a solution. If he's emotional, they might be more interested in talking about colors, or how beautiful you think that the system is, or whatever. So you will see the emotion could be, running bad, like becoming more and more angry, or not comprehended by the salesperson. In the bottom, you will see the trust going up or down, depending if you hit the right tone of voice. And patience, in this case, was merely time, but you could achieve a little bit of extra time if you hit the right spot. So now you can talk a little bit about extras. And if you hit the consumer really positively in the heart, it could be the case that there are other windows opening up. So there's multiple windows of opportunity. In totally, it could add up into 9 different upsell and cross-sell opportunities. But in this case, I sold only 3. And I think we will show in the end that you will see that there was one more opportunity if I would have hit the right tone of voice. And people could play this, the staff of the retailer could play this during the working hours in the store, basically, on a physical computer. And so here you see the end score. The client type was a technical client. We call them harm, that's the name. You see your offer versus the correct offer. So you missed €100 there. So you could have had some more revenues. And then you can play again. And the more you play it, the more difficult the clients become, but also the better you could score in the end. So the game starts again, and you get new clients coming in the store. And this game was perceived so nice that people played it on average in a period of 6 weeks time. On average, they played it 40 times, and that's really a lot. And I think if you really want to change behavior, it's really good to get people in this loop where they have to keep on playing. And in this case, over 20 times, and that's really good. Are there any questions about this case so far? Then I'll move. I'm going to quit one because I think it's nice to progress to one example that I really wanted to share. Sorry, I thought I had it. No, let me. Sorry, this one. I thought I had it here. Yeah, this one. sorry, this is a game that we developed to assess people based on their attitude. So we developed a game together with Start People Belgium. They are into selecting candidates for clients. They work for Nike Logistics and other big companies. And what they asked us to do is to develop a game where people could play through 3 days of their first work week. And in those 3 days, they will experience everything from going to the warehouse, going to the reception, picking up their badge, going into the locker room, etc., etc. And basically, in that way, playing through a few scenarios and experiencing what it is to be an employee of a warehouse. Because a lot of their clients had a lot of people entering every week or month. They would work for 6 weeks to 8 weeks, and then they would leave again. So the onboarding process, onboarding people was quite expensive. So they wanted to have a tool where they could better assess, like, does this person really fit this type of company? So they could, we could calibrate the system based on a certain amount of values. So attitudes. So 5 different attitudes, and they basically score by playing this game on those specific attitudes. So at the end of this game, we know exactly what type of person this is based on the DISC, the psychological underlying model that gives us a better insight in what type of person this is. And also then, of course, whether they better fit with Nike, or maybe better with DHL, or maybe better with Stanley, or other big brands that they serve with personnel. So we didn't, well, obviously you have some text in it because you couldn't really get past that. But there were about 40 questions in total in the game. There's no right and wrong. There's no, good and bad. It's just, the questions are just there basically to assess people, how they would handle a situation. And for instance, it's about inclusion. So it's about, okay, if someone is making a joke about a colleague of you from Morocco, how would you handle this situation? Would you laugh with them? Or would you say, hey, that's very discriminating, I don't like this joke? Or would you later go to Mohammed in this case and say, like, hey, how do you feel because they made a joke about you? There are all different approaches, not necessarily good or bad or right or wrong, but they will say something about you, how proactive you are, for instance, or how reactive, or how empathetic you are, or how blue or cold you could say you are.
Bart, one interruption
Yes.
here with a question, quite interesting one, I think. From your experience, where is the border that we should not cross in order not to risk to lose the content while trying to make it funny and engaging for people?
Yeah, that's the exact thin line that we balanced between. I had, it's a nice bridge maybe to another example that I can show you. But okay, let me share our preference in general. I think in general, we like to stick as close as we can to the contextual environment of the employee, right? So if you look at this, it doesn't look like Cook Dash or a really playful game that's only about entertainment and fun. It looks quite serious, but not too serious, not too strict. You still have some, glistering up in the screen. But it's always a discussion, like, does it now look like an e-learning or does it look like a game? And that's a thin line that we walk together with clients. We once developed a game for an insurance company, which was basically about bringing their brand values to life. So basically promoting the new values and the behaviors that people should display. And we had a lot of humor in it. But in this case, it was an insurance company. So they almost deleted every opportunity we put in there to be funny, or, well, not funny necessarily, but be lighthearted, you could say. The only thing we kept in was the naming, so proactive poll. So the alliteration of names, that was something that we still had in there. But it's a thin line. I think it should match your cultural setting. So if you are a company that allows people to make jokes and are a bit more lighthearted. So when I used to work for Diesel, for instance, that was a very lighthearted company. You could even slap each other on the backside, but that was because we wore jeans. But that's not possible, of course, anymore. You could say it's never has been possible. And if you work for a bank, it's probably a totally different environment. So you shouldn't have too much humor in it, probably, to prevent people feeling bad. I hope it answers your question. If not, please elaborate.
Sure. If Bart has managed to answer your questions, please let me know in the chat. Or if not, just give us a sign, and I'm pretty sure he'll give some more information. But one more question before that. Is there a specific profile our employees should fit to in order to make sure that they will react well and positively to the gamification as a tool?
No, not necessarily. I think, so this is the first question I always get, even from clients that, well, not from existing clients, but new clients, for instance, always say like, oh, gaming, that's for children, for instance, right? But if you know that the average gamer is 45 years old, right? So actually me plus 4 years, that's not necessarily a problem. I think it really depends on the process you undertake together and onboard people in the process of development. So like I showed you in the beginning, like we start with a GameStorm session, we onboard 6 people in that session, but maybe we need to do another 3 or 4 to onboard people in that sense. In this case, for this game that you see right now, we involved 100 people globally from Nationale Nederlanden because it was to be launched in 16 countries. So we asked those 100 people to come up with content for the cards and on the titles and the text. So we asked everyone, for instance, to create one card for the values care, clear, and commit. And they should score like between 0 and 5 points or below 0 and 5 points minus that they could split or that they could divide. So that's getting people on board of your game already. And I've seen fanatic people playing games of 60 plus years old. And I've seen undesirable people of 20 years old that thought like, this is not for me. And you will never satisfy everyone. So you will never achieve, I think, 100% onboarding in the game. But on average, we achieve about 70% commitment from people that play the game eventually. And at least, thanks to the digital tool, you know who plays it, when they play it, how often do they play it, which scoring they have, with whom they play it, for instance. And you know that the other 30% that doesn't play it at all, that they need something else. So maybe they should have a workshop, or they should read a book, or they should watch a video. So you can create a different form of content for them. And you will also see that often gamification systems are used in a wider range of assets. So also for NN Insurances, they had a kickoff video, they had a competition, they had posters throughout the company, they had email templates. So yeah, so it doesn't necessarily matter if you're young or old. It depends if we know in advance, like the target audience, this is you, this is the audience, like what type of people are these and how can we make sure what drives them, motivates them, which mechanics will tap into their psyche so that will make a game that's actually compelling to play.
One more question here that is really connected to the previous one. Is there a situation you have been in with a client when the gamified approach didn't work the way it was supposed to work? And if so, what were the reasons for that?
Yeah, I have one classical example, I guess, an old example from one of my first gamification projects ever for a high school, or not a high school, but a bachelor education. And we developed a game for people to actually onboard students quicker in the curriculum. So first year students, freshmen, they would tend to lay back a little bit for the first 4 to 6 weeks, then maybe check if they have the books, and then maybe they'll start studying for the classes, etc. That's the case in Holland, by the way. I know a lot of other countries are appalled, like, what? Why do they not study if they start their education? But the question was, how can we onboard them quicker? And we created a gamification system for them. It was quite successful. They actually did a whole research about it. There was only one thing that was wrong, at least merely wrong, because we had a competition element in it, where people could challenge each other, and the scoring was totally open and transparent. And that worked really great for boys, because all the boys were taunting each other and making jokes in the corridors, but the girls didn't like it at all. And I know it's sexistic to say, but there's a generic, you could say, a generic situation where boys are more individually, they are more competitive, they're more obviously physical with each other, and women are more group people and more caring for each other. And maybe if they are talking bad, a guy would say it in your face, and women would do it a little bit more behind the back, I think. And social security is much more important for them. And the fact that the leaderboard was out there with the names, etc., that was too intrusive for them. So that was a big mistake of us, which we could correct, fortunately. And again, that's why you need to test a lot in your process.
And one more question here that is, I think, also connected with the same sphere of topics. But how can we, as HR professionals, can find out what mechanics could work for the employees of our companies? Is it their personal characteristic that we should observe, or maybe the values of the company, or some elements of the culture that we have in the company?
I would guess the last thing you mentioned, but this is actually something I've been asking for myself in 5 conferences with my peers. So there's a global group of gamification gurus or experts or whatever we are called, or we call ourselves. And I ask this question every time I'm at the global seminar or the global summit, but no one really has the answer. You could say you could do extensive research, and maybe use management insights to say you're blue, you're yellow, you're red, or whatever. So also in my book, I developed something that's based on scientific research, but I'm not 100% convinced that you can put people in a box and that you can put a label on it, because there's such a thing as 16 personalities, of course, as well. But are there really 16 personalities? Is it by chance 4 times 4? Wow, that's a coincidence. So I guess it's the reason why in our process, we do start with a profile of the players, but we develop something, a prototype, we test it, see if it sticks. If it doesn't, we'll alter it, then relaunch it again, see if it sticks. If they like it, then make it better, bigger, test it with more people, improve it, etc. So the whole approach is agile, and that makes us, I think, at least better in control of achieving that what we need to achieve. And saying like, okay, just send out the questionnaire, like we did with NN group, by the way, send out a questionnaire, ask what type of person they are, or ask what type of mechanics they like when they play a game. In the case of NN, it was collecting, for instance. So that's why we put in a card game that people should collect as many cards as possible. And he who has the 16 stakeholders the quickest wins the game. So it was very successful, but that was also because the implementation of the clients, they took it so seriously. They had a steering group of 5 people. They played with the board to all the countries. They played on country level with their employees. Managers played it. So it's also about implementation and I think the process. So the process will help you, I think, to achieve your goal, instead of just saying it's this type of player, they're social, they're competitive, let's create something that they can beat the shit out of them together playing the game. That's too easy. It's an expertise.
Hey, thank you. One more question here. Bart, we're planning to to adopt gamification as an approach in our company, because the employees that we have and the ones that we are targeted to have are Generation Z, and we believe it will fit them. But are there any advices that you can give on where we should start? Is it the internal processes that really reflects to the employees that we have, like learning and development, for example? Or should we first start with the processes that are really connected with our employer branding and the people that we want to attract, like the recruitment and selection process?
I would love to have that question in email.
Okay.
It's a really big one. But it's a really big one. But I think not the last part. I think you could probably either make it part of your whole training concept, right? If you already have a learning and development strategy and there's an impact, and it also depends how many people we're talking about. Like, is it 100 or is it 10,000? That's a difference. If you have this whole L&D strategy, then I think gamification could definitely be part of the whole tool set that you offer, and that you could say, look, we have training, we have books, we have classes, we have peer-to-peer learning, and we have this platform, UpTrack, whatever, that you could utilize, or we'll create something ourselves, like a board game. That's fine. You could also, what we normally did in the past, is create something specifically for one specific topic, like with the mobile phone. That's more a business related topic. People needed to upsell and cross-sell better, so let's enable them speaking a language that fits the customers better. The advantage there is that it's quite easy to measure the impact of the behavioral change, because if they play the game well and the real life change is there as well, and you see the numbers going up, it apparently works. And then you have a good case that will tell everyone inside the organization, like, this works, guys, let's keep doing this. If it's part of your L&D budget, you need to find the budget. It might be the case, I mean, if you have a tailor-made game, it might cost you 60,000 euros or more to produce it. And that's maybe a nice bridge to the final example that I have here is you could also use a standard platform that's already available. And that's, of course, UpTrack, what we did together with Idein and with you, Paulina, that there's something available that you can fill with content that already has leaderboards, where you can do already competitions, where you have the possibility to create courses with certificates, where you can set out different trainings every week, every month, or every quarter, depending on what you like. You can do it for specific teams. So, but this is, like I said at the beginning, more of a platform with just some standard mechanics, which can work fine, depending on your question. So this could work better, I would say, if it's part of your L&D strategy. And if you want to tap into a specific question of the business, then sometimes a tailor-made game might be a better solution. I'm sorry for the long answer, and I hope
it was a long question. Yeah, and then no more questions for now, so we can continue.
Yeah, so maybe as a final case, one example of UpTrack, how we use it for the ambulance services here in Holland. They asked us to create something about, I don't know the word in English, but it's a clinical check, you could say. So there's a procedure that people of ambulances need to go through if they have to diagnose a situation. So we used UpTrack to create 3 scenarios that ambulance staff can go through. So the game kicks off, you sit in your ambulance, you go to the scene with your colleague, and you arrive on the scene, and like you saw in the movie just now on the left side, you see the situation, you see a living room, there's a woman with pain in her stomach, there's a bottle of wine, there's some pills. So what are you going to do? So you can ask questions, and based on the answers, you will get points for asking the right questions or being very empathetic. That's not necessarily the same thing. If you're very empathetic, for instance, you say, oh, it's very painful probably. That's great that you're empathetic, but you didn't get any more information. So If you will only be empathetic, you don't get the information to do the right diagnosis. So this shows you a little bit maybe how you can use this platform with standard mechanics, but with storytelling, we can still create quite a compelling adventure. You could lock certain stuff. You could say everything is open and available. There's different types of mechanics. You could argue we can create escape rooms and adventure games you know from the past through UpTrack and onboard people in this way and also educate people in this way. And we use UpTrack also for Venus Logistics, for instance, to onboard staff before actually their first day of work. So they play through the UpTrack platform before they go to the first day. And we got back, for instance, as feedback that people feel a lot more secure where to go, what to do, who to ask for the key, etc. So, and this is one final example of the tool. In this case, this is my environment, so you have multiple trainings available. And we also provide it to people that resell different trainings, actually. So this is me in an avatar. Like I said, egos work really, really well. Yeah, I think it's nice also to onboard people in the game if you give them the opportunity to create their own character, for instance. We did that for Vodafone.
Thanks a lot, Bart. Guys, you still have time to ask your questions to Bart because he's going to stay here with us. But now I would like to give the floor to the other guests that we have here today with us. This is Jenny Kolinova from the team of Idein. And Bart, if you don't mind, we're going to switch in Bulgarian now to explain the specific project that we did in the field of gamification and onboarding, and to give just some idea and information of what are the results of this project and how they can be useful for everybody. So, Jenny, заповядай.
Здравейте на всички. Виждам, че са само... Bart, can you please stop sharing your screen?
Yes.
Because I really want to see people, if it's possible. Yeah.
Me too.
Excellent. Yeah.
I'll show myself.
Hello. Yeah, hello everyone. Since Bart knows perfectly the project and I use the opportunity that everybody from the participants is from Bulgaria, I will use Bulgarian plus. This is a project financed through our national agency with 2 Bulgarian companies, so we will go back to our own language. And Bart, when we go to the new project, the new idea, I will go change back to English. И така, първо искам да ви благодаря много, че сте тук с нас на тази среща. And Bart, thank you so much for this extremely interesting presentation. Even me, I learned a lot. So thank you. Аз искам, няма да ви отнема много от времето, само с няколко думи ще ви разкажа малко повече за проекта. Той е с едно сложно име, ONBORD е неговата абревиатура, иначе организационна ориентация и социализация от ново поколение, като проектът е финансиран от програма Еразъм, партньорства за сътрудничество, малки партньорства, продължи 18 месеца и на практика тази среща днес комбинира в себе си и нашия вебинар, който ние обещахме да направим за фирмите, защо и как могат да ползват геймификация в техните HR процеси, но и финална среща, в която ние бихме искали малко повече да разкажем за проекта. Разбрахте, че той се осъществява от 3 партньорски организации. Идеин, това сме ние сме консултантска българска компания. Ние сме координатори на проекта, изпълняваме го заедно с Българската асоциация за управление на хора, ваш отличен партньор и наш. Чудесно работихме с тях и с IJsfontein от Холандия, Нидерландия, за които вие научихте преди. В рамките на 18 месеца, аз мисля и в скромния бюджет, който нашата агенция ни отпусна за този проект, смятам, че направихме много неща. Започнахме проекта с едно голямо проучване. Всъщност бяхме планирани да направим интервюта и фокус групи с представители на българските компании, човешки ресурси, но преди това, за да бъдем по-таргетирани и фокусирани в интервютата си, направихме едно голямо проучване чрез мрежата на БАЛХ с активната организация от страна на Поли, на нейния екип, в което се включиха 107 специалисти от най-различни фирми в България, от най-различни сектори. Това, което разбрахме от проучването, така не ни изненада много, с изключение на един факт. Всъщност, долу-горе процесът на онбординг е структуриран идентично в българските компании. Голяма част от сериозните компании имат разписани правила, процедури. Обикновено онбординг процес се координира от отделите човешки ресурси. В него участват много активно преките ръководители на назначение служител, но това, което нас не изненада, между впрочем, и то се потвърди в последствие и при интервютата и фокус групите ни, че 89% от нашите респонденти казаха, че в компаниите им не съществува практика за оценка на ефективността и ефикасността на онбординг процеса. Говорим като структурирана методология, която се прилага за оценка на тези два параметъра. Разбира се, има обратна връзка от страна на самите хора, които участват в процеса на многоназначените, както и от преките им ръководители, както и от човешките ресурси, но някаква структурирана методология, индикатори, които се следят, анализират и така нататък, на практика не се прилага. И това се потвърди във всичките ни срещи. Всъщност се потвърди и от срещи, които имахме с HR експерти не от България. Ние говорихме с много високо ниво директор човешки ресурси от Великобритания на цялата им здравна система, и когато му зададохме този въпрос, той отговори: това просто при нас никога не се прави. Не е приложимо. Считаме, че онбординг процесът е твърде важен и не оценяваме неговата ефективност. Това беше така. Може би причината е това, че все пак е някаква голяма публична структура, но факт е, че това е действителността в нашите компании сега. След като направихме това проучване, подготвихме едно полуструктурирано интервю или полуструктурирани фокус групи, в които също се включиха доста хора, от които аз виждам тук. Като това, което направихме, сега искам точно да намеря, значи 6 онлайн фокус групи интервюта, 4 телефонни интервюта, 1 присъствено интервю, разбира се, с хора не само от HR сектора, но и тези, които изпълняват функцията на бъди или на ментор. Тук ролята на Асоциацията за развитие на хора и специално на Поли беше уникална. Те свършиха много работа, за което аз наистина сърдечно им благодаря. В края на краищата общите изводи, до които ние достигнахме, бяха няколко, че HR-ите оценяват геймификацията като полезен инструмент, който може да добави стойност към различните HR процеси. Понякога обаче геймификацията се изравнява се оценява като еквивалентна на дигитализацията. Нашите HR смятат, че голяма част от процесите могат да бъдат геймифицирани. Не е задължително да измерват възвръщаемостта на инвестицията в този процес и че голяма част от вас смятаха, че цената за внедряване и последваща поддръжка на актуално геймифицирано съдържание за сега е твърде висока. Тоест имаше една несигурност и тя идва може би от липсата на практика, какви ресурси ще бъдат необходими, за да се геймифицира какъвто и да е процес в дадена компания. Като говоря за ресурси, тук говорим за финансови, човешки, време, необходимост за адаптация, актуализация и така нататък. Това, което достигнахме, нали, в нашия екип и с разговорите с вас като изводи, е, че е необходима повече информация, повече подобни срещи, в които да се говори повече за механиката на геймификацията, това, което Барт разказа с повече детайли, че е необходимо все пак да се определят някакви индикатори, с които се измерва по обективен начин стойността на инвестицията и ефективността и ефикасността на процеса и по какъв начин ние бихме могли да остойностим целият процес по въвеждане на геймифициран подход в нашата работа от гледна точка на финанси, хора, поддръжка и актуализации и така нататък. Всичките тези заключения ние сме ги подготвили, компилирали сме ги в доклади, те са налични на български език, на английски език, публикувани са на профила на проекта в LinkedIn, той се казва ONBORD, налични са на нашата страница на Idein, според мен са налични на страницата на асоциацията и ако все пак проявявате интерес и искате допълнително да ги получите, можете да ни пишете тук в чата или да се свържете с Поли и тя ще ви ги изпрати. След като свършихме тази подготвителна работа, преминахме през втория етап и той беше свързан с избора на 2 компании, с които да работим, за да можем да тестваме процеса на геймифициране, като геймифицираме, като им демонстрираме и геймифицираме част от техния онбординг процес. Приложихме няколко критерии за избор на компаниите, като най-важният критерий беше желанието им да участват, защото няма как да свършим, нашия екип нямаше да свърши каквото и да е, ако нямаше желание и 100% сътрудничество от страна на фирмите, с които работихме. Трябва да ви кажа, че това не се оказа много лека задача и лесна задача, защото голяма част от компаниите в България имат много стриктни процедури за конфиденциалност на своите материали. И въпреки нашето желание да подпишем какъвто и да е документ за конфиденциалност, това се оказа доста сериозен проблем. От друга страна, искахме да работим с фирми от така наречения реален сектор, не консултантски, не толкова за услуги и заради това след така много контакти и обсъждане избрахме 2 фирми. Едната е ONBORD България, а другата е Plain Care. Аз не знам дали представителите на тук сред нас, няма ги за съжаление, но заедно с тях, с техните екипи и заедно с партньорите от IJsfontein се запознахме с начина, по който те онбордват техните служители. Заедно избрахме тези елементи, които те искат да геймифицират и нашите партньори, използвайки тяхната платформа AppTrack, за която Барт току-що ви разказа, направиха по 2 модула за всяка една фирма, 2 модула от техния онбординг процес. Така че за неопърл ние геймифицирахме здраве и безопасно за складови работници и здраве и безопасно за офис служители, като модулите за тях бяха достъпни и на български и на английски език, като за Plain Care, които са българска компания, която се работи в сферата на авиацията с изключително строги, сложни и комплицирани процедури за работа. За тях също подготвихме 2 модула, като един е Health and Safety, а другия е Safety Precautions in Base Maintenance. Мога да ви кажа, че това са как да кажа, изключително сложна документация с много елементи в нея, така с много информация и указания и така нататък, която ние успяхме, нали, екипа на IJsfontein успя да превърне в много интересни и дори и на мен забавни модули за обучение. За тях модулите са само на английски, тъй като инструкциите им са само на английски и те предпочетоха да ги ползват само на английски език. Аз се надявам, че на някоя друга среща на HR-ите или на следващата конференция, когато Поли представя една добра практика на асоциацията, те биха могли да ви разкажат, защото ние нямаме право да ви ги покажем, тъй като това са си техни вътрешни документи. Какво ще да очаквате от проекта? Той свършва в края на този месец, но ние почти финализираме 4 основни документа, които според нас ще ви бъдат изключително полезни. Първия е, подготвили сме за вас набор от индикатори за измерване на ефективност и ефикасност на геймифицирания онбординг в различни сфери, различни разрези, измерения, ще ги видите, ще се радваме на каквато и да е обратна връзка от вас. Втория документ е доклада, който съдържа обратната връзка от участвалите в теста за начина, по който те възприемат геймифицирания онбординг и тяхната оценка в сравнение с класическия онбординг. Според мен той също ще ви бъде доста интересен, защото там има сравнение на основни параметри, които могат да ви покажат къде са силните и къде са слабите страни на геймифицирания онбординг, защото като всеки един процес, той има и силни и слаби страни, и като една от страни, не толкова слабите страни, колкото, как да кажа, притесняваща страна, беше това, че той леко отмества персоналния контакт. Затова всички фирми, с които говорихме, казаха, геймифициран онбординг окей, но ние задължително трябва да запазим физическия контакт с ментора, с бъдето, с проектния ръководител и така нататък. Третия документ е техническа спецификация, така сме я нарекли, която ще ви даде представа за разработването на геймифициран онбординг и която ще можете да ползвате като отправна точка, за да разработите своето геймифицирано съдържание. И последният документ е една адаптивна обучителна методология, в която ние ще ви представим всякакви геймифицирани обучителни методи, какво трябва да бъде съотношението между геймифицирано съдържание, личен контакт и така нататък. Един документ, който също може да ви бъде много полезен. Всички тези документи, за които говорим, техническата спецификация, методологията са адаптивни, те ще бъдат направени така, че да могат да се приложат във всеки един бизнес и във всеки един сектор. Разбира се, ще бъдат достъпни на всички публични канали на партньорите и Поли може да ви ги изпрати в мрежата на асоциацията. Ще бъдат достъпни на български и на английски език, разбира се. Това е в общи линии нашия проект, който според мен беше изключително интересен за всички. Благодаря на всички, които участваха в нашите фокус групи, в нашите интервюта. Пак казвам, виждам голяма част от тях тук. Без вас този проект просто нямаше как да се случи. Щеше да бъде някаква конструкция в нашите глави, а той стана наистина изключително интересен. И може би се чудите защо спряхме презентацията на Барт и направихме това проучване. So I'm going back to English. Bart, I'm just saying maybe everybody wonders why we did this small survey. And I will ask Polly to briefly present the results. Just briefly.
We are going to share them with everyone so you all will be able to see them. I think you can now. I cannot because I'm the administrator.
Yes, we can now. Yes, we see that 10% of our participants are quite familiar with the AI tools for HR. Is like a substantial percentage of 55% know a few of these instruments, which is really, really very inspiring for me. And only 35% say they are not familiar. And I see that 33% from participants actually confirm that they have already used AI-based tools in their everyday work, which is quite interesting, by the way. And it is really very interesting what type of tools you are using. Maybe we should do a different meeting about that. And I'm very, very happy that 82% are very sure that they want to use, and we will be using this.
Basically, it's 100.
Yeah, this tools if they know more about it, and if they have the opportunity to do it. And I see the two highest with the highest interest areas in the people management chain. You think they are learning and development, recruitment and selection, and employer branding. So yeah, thank you, Polly. So why we did this very brief survey is as every project has an end, and we have some ideas how to scale it up, how to upgrade it. This is why after we had this excellent partnership, decided to continue and go upward and change the project, go in terms of technology and tools, and move from the gamification to the upper level of AR. So our idea is to develop together, and of course with you, a new project named AI Tools for HRs. This is why we just wanted to be sure that our concept is feasible, and then there will be people who will be willing to use what we're gonna do if the project is successful. And it's an excellent combination between companies together with us. We added to our team another very high level companies working in the field of AI, in the field of HR, in the field of training. So if it's successful, be sure that you will be part of this project since its very, very beginning. So that's for me. Thank you so much, everybody, for being with us today. Thank you, Bart.
Wait.
And now, Polly, the floor is yours.
No.
The floor is
one
yours
more
for
because
closing.
Because actually we have one more question here to Bart, and because we have 5 more minutes, I'm able to share the question. Bart, what is the usual profile of companies that usually choose to gamify different processes that they have? Are there only from or mainly from the high-tech sectors, startups, or there are still other types of more traditional companies?
Well, funny enough, we could almost do a poll about this because it's probably contradictory. But funny enough, it's often very traditional organizations. For some reason that there's still someone that feels like we need a rigorous change. So it's obviously most of the time the projects we develop are for 1,000+ employees because your ROI on digital tools is higher, right? If you have more people, then 50 euros per person is better than if you only do it for 100 people. But the example companies, like I showed you, a few are mobile phones or insurance companies, banks. We did it for Schiphol Airport. A lot of retail, so Foot Locker, for instance. IKEA is actually a client of us, global for IJsfontein. But it's also a lot of universities these days, and I didn't expect that. I've been pushing in Holland like a lot to innovate education because I think there's a lot to gain there. I mean, if you look at children nowadays, they still get books shoved through their throat, if I may say it. And I think there's a lot of other ways of educating people. But it's not necessarily startups, not at all, because they don't have the budget most of the time. But what we like to focus on now with Uptrack is at least business services and ICT companies of 500+ employees. So to enable consultants, for instance, in a better way to serve their clients and to enable the change that they want to achieve with their clients. That's basically the proposition where we're focusing on now.
Thanks a lot. And some just a comment from one of our participants, which I believe is will be a good ending of this session. Bart, you mentioned that the average gamer is at 45. So you gave me the confidence that maybe in our company, where the average age of our employees is 50, gamification could work good. We are actually in the process of gamifying some of our processes, and now I feel encouraged that we may succeed. So I think this is a good ending really for today's session. Thank you very much, Bart and Jenny, for being here with us and sharing this information. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for really sharing your afternoon here with us. As Jenny told you, all the documents, all the things that were done during this project will be available in our channels, in the channels of Idein, in the channels of IJsfontein. So they will be at your, let's say, you will have full access to them to use it the way you think will be valuable for them. For us, it will be very valuable, really, if you could give us your feedback whenever you see these, let's say, documents, because we really appreciate it and will help us. So thank you very much. Sorry for my voice again, but we managed to, at least I can still speak after 1 hour and a half. Thank you very much, and have a nice evening.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, guys. Thank you. Bye.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you.
Have a good day. Bye.
Bye bye.
Bye.